All right, so thanks for your patience. We'll go ahead and get started now. Once again, my name is Brian. I'm the onboarding and training specialist here at Desk. And today we'll be talking about setting up Desk.com. So this webinar is geared towards newer customers and really getting their desk site set up from just the basics to A to B. Today we have here with us Barb Tassa. She's our Customer Success Manager. Barb, do you want to give a brief introduction of yourself?
I will. Thank you, Brian. Hi, everyone. My name is Barb Tassa. As Brian mentioned, I'm one of the Customer Success Managers here at Desk. And what that means is our goal is really to help your colleagues, your team set up Desk for your business, and we're here to help you guys do that.
All right. Thanks, Barb. Next, we'll go over just a few housekeeping items. The training portion of today's webinar will last just about 45 minutes to 50 minutes. During the training, if you have any questions, feel free to type the GoToWebinar questions panel, and I'll be monitoring those questions for the training. And as well, we'll have a dedicated Q&A at the end. We may choose to save some of your questions towards the end if we feel that it pertains to the larger group. As always, the session is being recorded, so if you can't stay with us for the entire time, or maybe if you want to watch the video as you set up Desk side by side, the recording and your own site, we'll be sending that out shortly after the webinar. All right, so without further ado, I'll go ahead and hand it off to Barb, and she'll walk us through setting up Desk.
All right, thank you so much, Brian. So today, what we're going to do is walk through a few different parts of Desk. First of all, we'll talk about key business questions that you may want to be considering with your team before you even start configuring Desk. I'll walk through an actual demo of setting up Desk.com for a bike shop. After we've done that setup, we'll talk about what are the basic versus advanced features that you can set up for your site. We'll recap what we've talked about. We'll discuss all the resources that we have available for you guys besides this webinar alone, and next steps you can take with your team to set up Desk. And as Brian mentioned, we'll have plenty of time for Q&A at the end. So as an administrator, one of the things that you may have already noticed when you log into Desk is that it is a very configurable product. And when you start working with your setup, try to keep in mind what kind of experience you want to be able to provide for your customers. You may want to think of a really basic A to B setup, get it going so customers can email you and you'd be able to manage those email inquiries. On the other hand, you may want to have a really fully functional site that has a support center, it's mobile responsive, has contact forms, in addition to be able to track social channels. So that would be more of the advanced setup. There's no right or wrong answer. It really just depends on your business needs and your customers. In today's session, what I'll be focusing on is that A to B setup, so you know really how to get going with Desk. Now, one of the things I really like to do before even going into the admin settings is asking our customers a few key questions to help define the strategy for setting up Desk. Firstly, I'm really interested in what type of customers you have. Why do your customers contact you? What methods or channels your customers use to contact you? How many inquiries you get each day? And also who's actually responsible for handling those inquiries? And probably the most important question is, what problems are you trying to solve with your support? So let's say that I run a local bike shop, Bay Cycles as an example. I'm going to go through these 5 questions for this particular business. So when I took these questions to my team, it came out that we have about 2 different types of customers. We have cyclists and we have vendors. And the cyclists who my staff work with told me that the main contact reasons that customers contact them are for bike sales, service, and events. The bike types that they inquire about are cruisers, commuters, and road bikes. Our bike shop also hosts events, so they ask about Friday fun rides, monthly 20K rise, and our annual race. In terms of contact methods, we discovered that we get a lot of phone calls from customers, but we also get emails. And we have a dedicated email address for our cyclist group. The emails are specifically handled by our staff team. In addition to our cyclists, we have vendors who sell products to our bike shop, and we do want to be able to track their interactions in Desk as well. So the manufacturers that our bike shop works with are Trek, Bianchi, and Mission Bikes. Vendors typically contact us for new products, order confirmations, and other promotions. We carry specific bike models. From a contact point of view, vendors are typically emailing us, and we do get some phone calls. Vendors also have a dedicated email address, and these particular emails are handled by our management team. So what we're actually now looking at is, based on this particular business, creating a data model. And what I mean by data model is thinking about those categories of information that I want to capture. So first, we have customer type, where we have a cyclist and vendor. Then we have a contact reason, like events, service, and bike sales for cyclists, but then new products, order confirmations, and promotions for our vendors. Cyclists ask us about our specific bike types, and then bike types. So when we put this all together, what we've created essentially is our data model in Desk.com. And all of these headings circled in red, like customer type, contact reason, these are called custom fields. So we can store them in Desk to make sure that we capture all the information related to our cases that we get from our customers, so we can report on them and make sure that we really understand why customers are contacting us. So let's walk through how this actually would work in Desk. If you think of Josh being one of our customers, if Josh sends an email to our bike shop, Desk will enable me to process that email based on its unique attributes. So unique attributes could be things like who it's from, who it's going to, the subject line and body, anything unique that makes it easy for us to identify that particular interaction. So once Desk does have that email, we can use those unique attributes to do things with the automation engine, which is using rules. And rules will allow us to do things like assign it to specific team members or specific agents. And with our custom fields that we defined, we can ask our agents to capture information about that particular inquiry in those custom fields. And when our agents actually start replying back, they can use a typical reply like email. They'll type in their response, or they can use some more automation through the use of macros. So when our staff actually reply back to Josh, our customer, we can use Desk email reply templates to change the look and feel of particular emails. So it can be really on brand. We can add logos. We can really make it a consistent brand experience for our customers. Okay, so now that I understand for the bike shop what my data model looks like and I have an overview of how Desk works, let's talk about the specific things I need to do in order to actually complete my setup for the basic, capturing email cases. So these are the 10 steps that we're going to do. First, we're going to just limit our contact channels to email. So ultimately, we can always add in phone and social channels at a later point, but today we're just going to stick with email. In the second step, we're going to be creating some custom fields and organizing the look and feel of our cases with what are called next-gen case layouts. In step 3, I'm going to create my staff and management groups and add a specific colleague into Desk to help me test. So usually at this stage, I don't add every single team member, but just 1 or 2 people to help me configure the product. In step 4, I'm going to create some inbound rules to categorize and assign cases. In step 5, I'm going to create some filters so I can show specific cases to my agents and my staff members. In step 6, I'm going to enable what's called an auto acknowledgement that will reply back to a customer as soon as they send us an inquiry to let them know we have received their email. We'll create some macros for more automation for commonly asked questions. And we're going to enable some notifications. In step 9, I'm going to ask you guys to participate as well in our testing. And then after I've done testing for my configuration, that's typically where I add the remaining team members and connect my real support emails so I can get real customer inquiries sent into Desk. All right, so let's jump now from the presentation to the Desk site. So when you've logged in to your Desk site, you probably see this panel. It's at your site URL /home. And this is where you can navigate into the admin panel, the universal inbox. That's where your agents will be spending most of their time, as well as business insights. So today I'll be spending most of the time talking about the admin setup, but we'll also jump into the inbox as well. So when I go into admin, I see these 6 tabs at the top here. The dashboard shows me an overview of my site. The team is where I can manage all of my colleagues, my staff, and other groups. In channels, this is where I can control which channels actually send me cases. In the Cases tab, this is where we have the majority of our automation tools. We'll be spending a lot of time in here. Content and apps, we're just going to leave off for today, but this is where you can actually customize your support center. So let's jump into our channels first, because my first step is just to enable the email channel and turn off all of the other channels. By default, most of the channels are going to be enabled, including the support center. I can see the status here that it is enabled. So for now, I'm just going to go into the advanced settings and disable this channel. Okay, I'll click on the email, and I see that I do have email enabled, and this support at zzz-desk-mail.com email address, this is my out-of-the-box support email that is live, so I can use this with my customers. I'll leave that on. Chat, go to advanced settings. It's right now disabled. Let's go to phone. Right now, phone calls are enabled, so I'll turn that off. Twitter, advanced settings, that is disabled right now. And then Facebook, advanced settings, that is also disabled. So right now, what I've done is just limit my contact to email, and I can check that when I go into the agent view. If I click the plus button, I'll hit a quick refresh. If I hit the plus button to create a new case, I should only be able to see the email function here. So I will no longer see phone or any social channels that were available previously. Okay, so step 1 is done. What we've done is now limited our cases just to the email channel. Now in step 2, we're going to go into our cases and start creating some custom fields to categorize all of our fields that we're looking to capture. So one of the first ones I've created was customer type. So we want to be able to differentiate between cyclists and vendors. So I've created that. I've created a list type custom field, which allows me to create drop-down options. And I'll create one with you guys right now for contact reason. So I click list type, and this is the contact reason that both of my cyclists as well as my vendors are contacting me. So for my cyclists, it was bike sales, service, and events. And I will also add in what my vendors were asking me about, and that was new products, order confirmations, and promotions. When I click Add, it's going to create this new contact reason custom field. I've actually gone ahead and added all of my custom fields into Desk already just to save some time. So for example, I added the bike types, I added event types, so all of these fields are in there, and I'm just going to enable them by switching the toggle from off to on. Okay, so now that all of my categories or custom fields are in Desk, in step 3, I'm going to go into the team settings, create a group. So I have a management group that's already created, and I have a staff group that's also created. And I'll go ahead and actually add a colleague into Desk. So I'll add Brian. And Brian will be, from a role perspective, he's going to be one of my agents that handles cyclist inquiries. So I will assign him to the staff team right here. Click Add. And when I do add a new user into Desk, they're going to get an email to let them know that they've been added as an agent with a login link. So if you do add users, just be mindful that they are going to get an email notification inviting them to log into Desk. Okay, so now that I have some custom fields created, I have my first agent in Desk, I'm going to start working with the rules engine and start creating some automation. So specifically, I'm really curious how I can actually separate cyclist emails and vendor emails, because I want to be able to show staff the cyclist cases, and the management team, I want to show them the vendor cases. So what I can do is actually create an inbound rule for cyclist emails based on that unique email address that they use in order to send inquiries to our company. So let's go into email 2. So this is what you're looking at here is our rules engine that allows me to look at specific conditions or those unique attributes that we talked about initially. And based on those unique attributes, I can actually take an action to do something in Desk. So the options are pretty robust. And in this case, what I'm doing is looking for customers that are emailing my my cyclist email address, and that was baycycles101@gmail.com. And I'm also looking to run this rule only one time. So I'm looking for what's called the case status is new. So inbound rules can run anytime somebody sends you a case into Desk. So whether it's the first time or if it's on the 10th reply back and forth. In this case, I only need this rule to run one time to identify my cyclist emails. Now, in my rule actions, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a custom field called email source that I created previously, set case email source. And this is my cyclist email address. So all I'm doing right now is asking the Desk rules engine to look at which email address the customer sent this email to, and then set a new custom field for the email that I will later use in a filter. So if you guys will stay with me, we'll see the end result of that. I'm going to enable this rule and click Update. So in order to then show emails that are being sent to this particular email address, I'm going to pair this inbound rule with a filter. And in this filter, what I'll do is categorize cyclist email, and that is going to be based on that custom field that I just created. So we'll look for that custom field called email source is baycycles101@gmail.com. And that's the only thing I'll do. I'll just look for that particular custom field being set. The other options that I have on my filters are to actually set a permission. So this is where I can get really fancy later on if I have multiple teams within Desk, because I can actually go and show filters to specific groups. I can show it to just single users, which can be very handy for administrators or managers trying to see certain types of cases. Or you can show it to all users, which I'm going to do in this case. So once I've created this filter, I can click Enable, Update, and that filter is created. So let's see what that actually looks like in Desk. When I go over to Desk, on the left-hand side, these are my standard filters, and this cyclist emails is a new filter that I just created. Right now, there are going to be no specific cases in this filter because nobody's emailed me at that Gmail address, so I do expect this filter to be empty because no case has a custom field that's set. So let's do the same thing for our vendor emails. So I'll go back into the rules engine in my inbound interaction section, and I can actually just copy this cyclist email rule that I created because it's very similar to the email for our vendors. So I can just copy this and then modify it. Let's do vendor emails, and then the email to is a different one. So it's SafeCycles101 plus vendors@gmail.com. Likewise, I want the case status only when it's new. And I'm going to set the case email force to my second email address for vendors, and I will enable this rule. When I click update, right now nothing is going to happen. And likewise, I'll go over to the filter section. Similar to my cyclist email filter, all I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this filter and then modify it for the vendor emails. Change the condition to look for the second custom field, and then enable it. The one other thing that is available for my filters is the default sort. So out of the box, Desk is going to default sort on a priority. You can also change it to last received, last updated, any specific feature you're looking for. I personally like to see my cases sorted in the descending order based on the receive date. So I'll create this filter sort this way. Likewise, I'm going to show this filter to everybody for the time being, but later on I may want to just show this to the management team since they're the only ones that deal with vendor emails. So I'll click update, and then if I navigate back into my agent view, I can see that these two new filters were added, and both of them right now are empty. So right now, I'm not exactly sure. You guys are probably wondering what's going on with the rules engine. We're not really seeing a lot of action. And when we do a little bit of testing, we'll go through and you guys can see how the rules are working. But if I'm just going to take a quick moment to talk about the different types of rules that are available, what we did was we worked in the inbound interaction of rules section. So in this section of rules, rules are going to run when a case comes into Desk. And each of these other rule types run at a different point in time. So we have outbound interactions. That's when you send an email out from Desk. So if you want something to happen when you're sending out an email, that's where you can create your rules here. Case created is pretty similar to inbound interactions, and it will also apply to cases that you create right from Desk. The other common ones we typically use a lot are case updated. And a case update, for example, is anytime an agent opens the case that just came in, they may change who it's assigned to, they may add a note, they may change a custom field or add a label. So anytime that happens and a case is saved or updated, this class of rules will then run. Lastly, I use a lot of case resolve rules as well. So some of the things I like to check for is making sure that we have certain custom fields filled out for reporting purposes. So we can talk about how to make essentially required fields on cases so you do have enough information on all your cases before they're resolved. We also have a class of rules called time rules. So if you want something to happen based on a timer, so let's say a case has come in and nobody has answered the case for a 24-hour period. You can, for example, create time rules that will add alerts. It could send notifications and just generally remind your team to get back to the customers in a certain amount of time. So the rules engine may seem a little bit complicated at first, but if you try to break it down and think about when you want something to happen, it becomes pretty straightforward to start thinking and creating productivity rules around your specific needs. Okay, so now that I've talked a lot about the rules, I'm going to do a few more things to update the automation. So the first thing I'm going to do is enable the auto acknowledgement rule. So the auto acknowledgement rule is basically something that gets activated when you first have a case come in, so when case status is new. And as long as the customer has not received an auto acknowledgement in the last 24 hours, Desk, the rule action, is to send an email auto acknowledgement to the customer. So we have a default theme that you can eventually, of course, modify and make it very branded, but out of the box, it essentially just thanks the customer for sending in their inquiry. So out of the box, everybody has this rule in their inbound interaction rule section. It's just going to be disabled, so if you do want to use this, all you have to do is toggle the switch. The other rule that's already built into your Desk site is called the new interaction notification rule, and that essentially will send a notification that you have a new case, and that will be sent to all of your team members that are in Desk. So I typically like to have that enabled if my team does not have Desk open all the time. So it's a good way just to have a little reminder sent to them in their email that a new case has come in. All right, so we have our auto acknowledgements on. The next thing I'm going to do from a productivity point of view is go to the macro section. So macros are a really great way to save time in typing and setting custom fields. So what I mean by that is one of the ways that a customer, you can reply to a customer, and I'll just open up the sample one here. You can basically type into the reply area, here is my reply, or if you get a lot of frequently asked questions that have a similar answer, you can use this macro function that will push in pre-created text that you customize so your agents don't have to retype that same answer over and over again. So let's go and create one right now. I have this one here ready to go for us for cyclist events. So as I mentioned, my bike shop does get a lot of inquiries about our Friday night fun rides. And instead of having my agents retype that information, I'd actually like to create a custom reply to those people asking about the event that will actually tell them exactly when this happens. So what I've done is I've enabled this add quick reply section, and that's actually what's entered into the reply area. In between these two curly braces, you see what's called a liquid variable. And we can talk about liquid variables in the advanced section as well, but essentially a liquid variable allows you to dynamically pull information that's saved in the database, for example, the customer's first name. So that way your agent doesn't have to retype that name. They can just use this liquid variable and that will auto-populate the customer's name. This is information about the event. And the other things I want to do is actually make sure that I'm setting information that I do want to report on later on. And that, for example, is my customer type being the cyclist. So it's only cyclists that are asking about these events. We know that the contact reason is events. And the other thing we know is the specific type of event, it's the Friday Fun Ride. So I can actually set all of these custom fields, make this macro available to all users, and let's give that a little try in action. I'm just going to hit refresh. All right, I'll just delete this reply here. Let's look at that. So here's the macro that I just created. If I click on that, I see that my first name is filled out. I get this reply that I just created in the reply area. And on the right-hand side, where I have my standard as well as my custom fields, I see that I have the event type selected, I have the customer type selected, and the contact reason selected. So with just one click of a macro, I'm able to create a reply and also set custom fields as well. All right, so the last thing we're going to talk about is emails. So emails can be found under the channel section, under email. And there are a few different ways that you can connect your existing support email address to Desk. Actually, there's 3 ways. So the first way is this particular email address that comes out of the box with your Desk account, and it's going to be unique to your site. So your email will look something like yoursitename.desk-mail.com. So my site name is a pretty long one, zzz-baycycles2. So this is a live email address, and for testing purposes, actually, what you guys can do right now is send me some test emails so you can see what it looks like, for example, to receive an auto acknowledgement out of the box from Desk. So this is the audience participation portion. So if you guys can grab this email, Brian is going to put it into the GoToMeeting chat window, or if you can see it here, it's support@zzz-baycycles2.desk-mail.com. So he's going to put that into the chat window for everybody so you can copy that. And I do encourage you to actually send me a test email, so that way you can see what it looks like when it comes into Desk, and as well what it looks like to receive an auto acknowledgement. So while you guys are sending the test emails, let's talk about the other two ways of getting cases into Desk. So the other way is to actually add a mailbox right here. So add a new mailbox creates what's called an IMAP connection, and you can just directly connect to your IMAP server this way. The other way is through what's called email forwarding. And email forwarding, there's a great guide that you can access from the dashboard section by clicking Set up Email Forwarding. And email forwarding essentially will ask you to go into your current email server or provider. So if you use Gmail, for example, or Google Mail for your email, you can go there and forward your emails to your support email address. We generally recommend the email forwarding because it is a bit of a faster way to get cases into Desk. However, both ways work really well, whether it's the IMAP connection or the email forwarding. I'm not going to continue this right now, but let's jump back into our support center and see if anyone's actually sent me cases. Any test cases. Awesome. Here we go. So thank you both, Brian, for sending me test cases. A couple of things I want to mention here. On this column here, you'll see case statuses. Any new case that comes in is going to be filled in with this blue circle. If I've opened the case already, it'll go into this non-filled in blue circle. If I've replied back to my customer, it's in this purple pending status. And if I've resolved it, it'll be a green circle with a checkbox in it. So I'll use my new macro that I just created to send Brian a response. So let's do, and the other way I can use the macro, instead of just clicking here to access this particular macro, I can use a shortcut which is 2 hashtags, and then I can start typing in this particular name macro name. All right, so that just filled it in, and I'll do send an update to send that reply back to Brian. Okay, so I'll send these quickly as well. All right, and there are a lot of Brians today. Okay, send an update. I'll just close these as well. So I close them off the top. And one more. So you guys can already see that even just by testing, using a macro to reply is actually a pretty fast and efficient way to get back to my customers. One other thing you may not know about the inbox, this top right ellipsis here allows you to access more fields or remove certain ones that you don't want to see. So I can click to remove or add them. And I can also drag and drop any of these column headings. So if I like to see the statuses on one side, I can move all of these around. And this is going to be specific to each agent. So this is not a global setting. This is actually an individual setting that any of your agents can make changes to for their own specific sites. All right, so that is basically the setup that we just went through. So let me just jump back into the presentation here. So one of the things that you may be thinking about now is, well, after this basic setup, what can you do now? And some of the things that you may want to consider are setting up a support center. So a support center, in the same way, would allow your customers to answer their own questions. You can have a lot of articles, you can have a lot of frequently asked questions, product guides, videos, attachments, anything you really need to communicate that information to your customers. And it's a really great solution if you have thousands to millions of customers that you can't necessarily answer all of their questions one-to-one. The Support Center also has a contact form that you can enable and customize. So all of those custom fields that I created in Desk, like the contact reason, event type, those custom fields can also be surfaced onto your contact form. And it's fully integrated with Desk. So if your customer starts a case from the Support Center contact form, it will be sent into Desk just like they would if they were emailing you directly. Likewise, when they email, they'll get the auto acknowledgements if you enable them. It will be sent to agents, and when the agents reply, you can enable some other advanced features like the Customer Satisfaction Survey, CSAT. So what that means is that with every resolution, for example, you can have a little bit of code that's enabled in the Desk reply theme that surfaces a little series of happy faces to collect your customer feedback on whether the interaction was positive or could have been better. And I'll show you guys how to enable that right now in your Desk site. So when I go back into the admin settings, into the cases section, at the very bottom of this menu item here, I see the Customer Satisfaction Survey. So what I can do is enable it. So it comes out of the box disabled, but when I do enable it, I can change the question that I ask. I can change the frequency with which these smiley faces are shown, so either with every resolution or with a first resolution. And the difference is that a customer, if they were to reply back to a case where your agent clicks send and resolve, it would reopen the case. So if you select with every resolution, it'll happen every time your agent hits send and resolve. You can change how many smiley faces you get, either 2 or 4, and you can also enable or disable an additional question. So if you're looking for feedback on what you could have done better or what else the customer wants to see, you can actually add this one additional question as well. All right, so that is pretty much the content for today. So what we've gone over is really what are the things that you should be thinking about and deciding what information to capture before you even start considering Desk. We talked about creating groups, we looked at rules, we looked at macros, we looked at getting cases into Desk, and we also talked about some of the more advanced things that you can start doing with your Desk setup. So what you see here is a lot of information, but Brian said we'll be sending this to you after the call. So all of the things that we kind of went through today, we have a reason to implement or a reason why you should consider implementing it because it's a great tool, and as well as a Desk article on how to get more information on that particular feature. For more advanced users, if you're starting to think about what else you can do with your Desk setup, there are lots of things to start thinking about. One is security, so you can have two-factor authentication or SSO on your site. You can start changing agent settings. You can look at case permissions, whether they can reply from their emails or just within Desk. You can start changing the rules and permissions for your team. You can really start getting into more advanced rules, some time rules, and creating required fields for your cases. In terms of customization and customizing the look and feel, you can change pretty much everything within the Desk setup. You can change the look and feel of your emails, you can add logos, and you can add a lot more liquid variables to pull more information dynamically from your database. The support center, we really encourage everybody to set up a support center so you can have some great resources for your customers who want to answer their own questions. So there are a few articles there on how to really start customizing the support center. After you have cases, you're probably starting to look at data. So we have some great resources for business insights, which is the reporting tool in Desk. And for anyone that is also using Salesforce as their CRM, we have what's called Desk Connect, and that allows you to send and sync cases and data between your Desk account and your Salesforce account. All right, and I'll pass this to Brian to talk about one awesome new thing that we just launched this week that will help your team.
Thanks, Barb. So this week we launched Trail in Trailhead, and for those of you guys that aren't familiar with Trailhead, Trailhead is the new and fun way to learn about Salesforce products. If you think about it, anything in terms of Salesforce, whether it be Pardot or Sales Cloud or Service Cloud or even Desk, they're interactive learning guides that you can take and you can keep track of what you've actually learned and which ones you've completed through Trailhead. So this week, we just launched the Desk Trail, and the first trail, it's a basic trail. We have two modules within the trail. One is Desk.com Basics, and the second is Desk.com Toolkit. Now, these are really great informational, learning tools about Desk. And let's say that you are the admin for Desk, and you have the responsibility of sharing out to the rest of your organization or your support team about what is Desk. So this is a really great thing to share with a team. So taking these learning modules, they'll have a good understanding of what Desk is, what Desk can do, and why Desk is going to benefit them in terms of making their lives easier. So we really encourage you to take these trails. To get there, I've included a link, and again, we'll send you the deck, but this will take you to the Trailhead page. Now, in order to actually view and read through the learning modules, you don't need to have a Salesforce login or developer login, but if you would like to start keeping track of which modules you've completed and which trails you've completed, you can sign up for a free Salesforce developer org, and then you can start keeping track of what you've completed. And we've kind of gamified this, so it's a game where you can collect badges and you can share these on your LinkedIn profile. So this is a really great, again, introduction to not only Desk, but also Salesforce products. So I encourage you guys to take these. Also wanted to share a couple other resources with you guys. We have our support center. So Barb talked about, the importance of setting up a support center for your customers, and that's what we've done also. We've set up support.desk.com so that we can share with you guys and other customers how to set up Desk. So there's a lot of great how-to articles. We've split this up into different topics of getting started, agent, admin, and even developer for those more advanced setup items. So I encourage you guys to take a look around. For those of you guys that are more auditory and visual learners, we've also set up our video support center on the top right-hand corner. So there, again, we have a lot of great content. Some of our videos range from 2 to 3 minute videos, and some are longer webinars, which are 30 minutes to an hour. So take a look around, and we've also separated those out into topics as well, so that it's a little bit easier for you guys to consume. Next, and if you'd like more information on setting up your own support center, there's a link here which actually takes you to a page that will actually walk you through some of our customer support sites. So this will really kind of get your creative juices flowing in terms of what your own support center could look like and kind of the possibilities of that. All right, and as always, we do our best to try to provide a lot of resources so that you can kind of help yourself in getting set up. But, anytime you feel like you're a little bit stuck or if you need a little bit more hand-holding through a setup item, we really encourage you guys to our WOW team. We are here to help you guys through any, whether it be a simple question to your complex business use cases. So feel free to reach out to us at support@desk.com or feel free to call in. We've also set up a brand new desk office hours that are going to be hosted every Wednesday. So if you want some interactive screen sharing and troubleshooting, then I encourage you guys to sign up for our office hours webinar, which you can also find on the same landing page that you signed up for this webinar. All right, and with that, we want to encourage you guys, and we really hope that you guys have a successful launch. At this time, we'll go ahead and open the floor for Q&A. If you do have questions, please feel free to type them into the GoToWebinar questions panel. And let's see if we have any questions right now. 1 second. All right, so our first question, can we see the rule to make sure a custom field is filled out before a case can be resolved? I think Barb did mention that. Barb, do you want to maybe walk them through that?
Absolutely. So I'll go back into admin, under the cases section, navigate to rules. And in this case, I'm going to create a rule under the case resolved section, because I only want this to run when my agent presses that button, send and resolve, or resolve a case. So I'll create this rule and say, for my purposes, maybe I really want to capture contact reason. So let's say contact reason. I try to name my rules very literally, so if I look back in my site later on, I'll know exactly which rule does what. And so how I write this rule is going to depend on which custom fields you have in your site, but in my case for the bike shop, I'm going to look for the custom field called, let's see where it is, case contact reason. So that was why my customers are contacting us. And in this case, I'm saying is, and it's basically blank, so nothing has been selected, meaning that my agent actually has not filled out that field. And the second condition I'm going to just put here is case status is resolved, so meaning that that person is trying to resolve that case. And the rule action I'm going to take to make it required is to actually set the case status back to open. So let's look for that case status to open. And the second thing I like to do is add some kind of visual cue to let the agent know that, it's not that there's something buggy, that they can't resolve the case. So what I'll do is actually append a case label, meaning I'm going to add a visual cue for them to say that contact reason required. Make that shorter. And so I'm actually typing the name of the label here, and if I press enter, it's going to create that label for me right from here. And just so you guys are aware, we have two types of label options. One is set case label, the other is append case label. For the most part, you want to use append case label because it'll just add a label to the case. So if you have, if you do use labels, if you use set case label, that function will just clear any other labels that are there and add that new one. So for now, I'm just going to usually use append case labels. So when I enable this rule, I can give that a test in a second, but let's click update. And I'm just going to read it to make sure it makes sense. So if case contact reason is blank and case status is resolved, then set case status to open and append case label contact reason. So let's go test that right now. I generally like to test every rule that I create to make sure it works properly. So let's reply back to Greg here. So I'll just use the macro that I created first. So that was cyclist events. And instead of just doing a send and update, I'll do send, update, and resolve. So let's just make sure that that rule runs. Okay, so looks like it resolved. Oh, right, but that's because I set the contact reason. So this is also why I test. But let's pick a new case where I don't use that. Okay, let me just pick this one. So if I have no custom field selected, which is contact reason, and I try to click resolve, let's see what happens. So there we go. The status is set back to open, and my label is contact reason required. So let's actually do this. So let me actually use the macro, and let's make sure it runs again. Cyclist emails. So I have that contact reason set now, and now if I do send, update, and resolve, I can see that it is resolved. So that's how the case required field works. I basically go into the case resolve section and I choose when I want that rule to run. You may want to have it just for a single custom field. You can have it for multiple custom fields. So that choice is up to you.
All right, thanks, Bart. Another question here. Why are emails in the case window not default HTML format?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. So when you get a case in from anybody, so I'll take Joanna's case, it's new. In the classification, so what I'm looking at right now is the next-gen agent view. You can look at the HTML version of any case if you want to by clicking on the email, this drop-down arrow, the HTML section. But by default, Desk does rip out that HTML formatting. And so if you have images or if you have attachments, it will actually take them off this interaction area. So if you are sending back and forth a lot of images, I would encourage your agents to check this HTML section to see if there's if you copy paste Excel in there, the formatting will definitely be stripped out, so it could look a little bit strange. To answer your question why that is, I'm not exactly sure, but we do have workarounds if you're trying to figure out how to add inline images. We have something called Textile that will essentially allow you to embed any kind of web-hosted images, JPEG, PNG files, so you can mimic inline images with your customers.
All right, thanks, Barb. Another question. I think this was during the test phase where we were sending in emails. Mm-hmm. Could those test emails have been answered in bulk?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I go back into the agent view, to use anything that's in bulk, I can select multiple cases at a time by checking this box here. And what I can do is add a note in bulk. I can add a reply area in bulk right here. And I can use macros in bulk as well. So some things that I can't do in bulk individually, for example, is changing custom fields. So if you see, I actually don't have the ability to change any of those contact reasons or customer type. If I want to use that in bulk, I'll have to do that using a macro. So I can create a specific macro that will, let's say, update the contact reason as the same one for all of those cases. So I just create a new macro, and then from here, select the cases I want to update and apply that macro. Or, if I want to change the basic case field, I can do that as well here.
All right. Looks like that was the last question. Before we wrap up, maybe we can just hop on to, I think there's one more slide just summarizing some of the resources in the deck. We talked about kind of the, reaching out to support.desk.com. As well as the Video Support Center. That's something that we really did want to highlight. The Video Support Center is something that you guys can also set up, and we have an article on that as well. Once again, our webinars, feel free to visit those webinars, especially the office hours one that we will host. And again, I just want to reiterate that if you do feel like you're stuck at any time, reach out to support@desk.com. Yeah. Barbara, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I actually had one thing to add I forgot to mention during the presentation, but I think it's a really cool feature. So let me point that out before we end for the day. So I know that we were just looking at the cases themselves, and we saw these standard fields here, and then the custom fields that I created. I could actually modify the look and feel of this case layout area to meet the team's needs. So let's just jump into that. Under the cases section in admin, I can go to the cases section where I initially created those custom fields. And I'm going to click on next gen case layouts. So what I can do is actually create specific team-based, let's say a staff one. I can create team-based case layouts. And then I can modify what information is going to be shown. So let's say I don't need language, I don't need description and subject. I'll just take those off, and I can add to this any of my custom fields. So let's say contact reason, let's say customer type, let's drag that on here, and event type, for example. And I can modify these to be full width across that custom field area. Click Save, full width here. And then the one other thing I do have to remember is add myself and the other team members that need to see that particular layout. So when I click Update and I go back, refresh that case view, I will see that the custom fields have now been modified, and I just see the ones that I selected. So just to kind of reiterate, the data is still there in the background, so if you have cases or other case layouts that are setting certain custom fields, that data is still going to be there, but it's just like a visual presentation, so I can modify what it looks like to Team A versus Team B. So it makes it really nice to be able to separate the functionality and the work. And that was actually the last thing I wanted to mention.
All right, thanks, Barb. And looks like we're just about out of time. Once again, I want to thank you guys all for joining the webinar. Again, once again, please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Join the office hours next Wednesday. Barb, I want to thank you just for joining today as well.